before we take off for this week?
All right. So we have been working on a trivia, an in-browser trivia game that will be could be one of several games that we might have on our website as a showcase of cool stuff that our interns have created. So Daniel has put together a really cool game that uses JavaScript and PHP and MySQL on the back end. And so we've been making some small edits to that code, kind of finding some teaching moments there. So where I see, it looks like there are a couple recent commits to the GitHub repository that I need to sync here, and let's see what. Okay, great. So why don't I go ahead and share my desktop? Okay, so looking here at the desktop GitHub client, here's part of what we did last week with Isla updating some of the styles, and then looks like this was just last night that Daniel looks like updated a little bit of the JavaScript code there. And more importantly, like we talked about, he looks like he's updated the MySQL functions to use the MySQLi extension. So we talked about that last time, so that's very good. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, so so there's a couple things we want to talk about today. So first, we're going to go over SQL injection again, just very briefly, and we can see how we can use stored procedures to prevent SQL injection. We're going to learn about a cool feature of Git and GitHub. It's called Git Ignore. And then if we have time, we're going to look at using Bootstrap's less code, and we'll improve our we'll improve the design of our HTML. We'll make our HTML more semantic by using Bootstrap mix-ins rather than all those little Bootstrap classes that we have in our HTML right now. So that's the agenda. Okay, so first of all, SQL injection. If we look at this page, this is send.php. If you're following along on GitHub, and so do we have something similar? This is just a select, just select query. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of refactoring these couple lines to use a stored to use a what's the word I'm looking for? Stored procedure is not what I wanted to say. Prepared statement. Goodness, what am I doing? Okay, prepared statement is what we want to use to kind of mitigate against a security risk here. So the rule of thumb with rule of thumb with SQL queries, if we have a SQL query in code, which sometimes you do some, if you do a bigger projects, you might use a framework that will kind of take care of a lot of this for you, so you don't actually have to write the SQL query yourself. But for a small project like this, when we do have our own SQL query, we never want to build a SQL query using string concatenation, which is string concatenation is a fancy word that just means kind of adding strings together like this. So we have this string, and then a dot, and then this variable, which represents a string. And so right now we're just kind of adding, we're kind of smushing all those strings together. And we want to not do that because, keep in mind, we're taking this variable from just from the user. That's just from the post data that they're sending up, and they could make this quest. For example, what if that was they just end the SQL statement and then they put in a second SQL statement like that, like in their, like they could like basically put a second SQL statement in that form field, in that variable, and that would execute if we just use string concatenation. That would get into your SQL query here, and it might execute. Now I think MySQLi has some protection against that, but it's still a little bit of an issue. So we don't want to, and certainly we want to get in the habit of not doing string concatenation, because sometimes that can get you into trouble when we're building SQL queries. So what we're going to do instead is use a prepared statement, and I'm going to look up here the MySQLi extension for PHP. This is php.net. It has its own search function, but I find oftentimes that it's easier just to use Google to to find the right spot in the documentation. And we're going to look here at prepared statements, which is kind of the best practice way to avoid this. And actually, I seem to remember they have better examples. Let's see if I can. Yeah, they have. If we look at the specifically at the bind param bind parameter example, I think they have better examples. Yeah, they have good examples on this page. So here's kind of a good example of a prepared statement, and the way this will work is rather than having these variables in here, what we'll do is we'll use this MySQLi prepare function. Statement, I'll just use statement here. And then the first argument here is the link, what they call link, which they get from it's the result of the MySQLi connect. That's our connection. And then we're going to have our query, but instead of concatenating these in here, we're just going to put a question mark. And in fact, we can, it'll look like that. We'll even get rid of these little quotation marks. And we'll have one for each. There we go. Okay. And then the next step will be to use this this function, MySQLi statement bind param. Okay. And then this this next argument to this function is going to indicate what the types of the variables are. And they have a little guide for us here. You know, this is a string, D is for double, I is for integer. And I believe all of these are strings. Is that right, Daniel? Or are some of these numbers?
Well, they are all strings.
They're all strings. Okay, thank you. And there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did I get the right number of questions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. They're all strings. So, you know, these just go in order. So, for example, if the third one were an integer, you know, we could replace it with an I, like so. And then after that, this function will just take sort of a kind of an unlimited number of arguments after that, which will just be the variables in order. Okay, and then to execute our prepared statement, first of all, it looks like you can put variables in there and then set the values of the variables later. That's interesting. What we're doing is fine. Okay. And then,
Sorry, Jacob, may I ask a question as you're making these edits? What is the security fault in making concatenated strings? And how is your prepared statement format, how does it address that security issue? The reason that we should not use concatenated strings is because
the reason is because it creates a SQL injection vulnerability. That means the user could execute execute SQL statements that you don't want them to. They can set these variables to the value of a SQL, of a they can end the previous SQL statement and then begin a new one, and that could run. That's the statement you're sending to the server.
So in other words, when they make an answer, instead of writing an answer, they could actually write code in there that would execute.
Yeah, they could write delete all your database tables.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, got it.
And a prepared statement will treat all of these like they won't treat these like just part of the string. They'll treat these as kind of as variables. So whatever they put in here, it's not going to turn into it's not going to turn into the end of the previous SQL statement and the beginning of the next one, no matter what they put in here, because that's what a preparing the statement this way is kind of avoids that.
Because you specified what the string has to be, integer, string, or so forth. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it'll treat it as a string. It won't treat it as just like part of the query.
Great. Thank you, Jacob.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So the task that I'm going to leave you with is to I'm not going to commit these changes. I will let you, for practice, kind of replicate, use the documentation if you need to. I will let you replicate all of that. And there are a couple different patterns for the code here, so you can see how both of those work. And here I will paste that link into the chat box.
Fantastic.
Okay.
What if, guys, we practice executing Jacob's suggestion here by having one of you take the ball and writing the prepared statement, and then the rest of you can chime in and help write that code. Does that make sense? Or should everyone, Jacob, do you think it would be better if everyone tries it on their own?
No, I think what you suggested is great.
Okay, good.
And tell you what, John,
work as a team. One person will do the typing, and the others will make the suggestions for what needs to be typed.
Okay, great. And since I do have to leave really quick, I just get in a couple more before we break off and try this out. I want to show off a couple more tricks that we can use to improve our project here.
Fantastic.
Okay. So let me pull up our GitHub repository here. Okay, so something to pay attention to in our GitHub repository is this file that's called gitignore. It's actually, there's a period at the beginning, so it's .gitignore. I can make that bigger. And this file, which I have pulled up here in Notepad, what this file does is it tells Git, and GitHub is based on Git, that it should ignore certain files. And actually, I have it ignoring this folder. I'm using NetBeans as my development environment, and NetBeans sort of creates some special files that are just particular to NetBeans whenever you open a project in NetBeans, and those go in the NB project folder. So I'm using, and you guys don't need those files. Other people will be using different development environments, besides NetBeans. So those don't need to go in the repository. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting this line in gitignore so that those changes won't get synced. Um, so let's say there's something else that we want to ignore. For example, okay, so this db.php. There's so the issue with this file, and this is a good improvement on what we had at the beginning, where we had this in every single file. But obviously, a lot of people aren't going to, hopefully, they're not going to just leave, just use. First of all, hopefully, they're not going to leave their root password blank on their MySQL installation. That's not good security practice. And they may have, even better, they may not be using their root username at all for this project. They may have a specific MySQL user, and we can talk about, maybe in a future webcast, we'll talk about the principle of least privilege and what we want to do as far as giving users access to our database. But so the end result here is that well, people are going to want to change the username and the password here. In fact, in some cases, they may even not be hosting the database locally. So they might want to change localhost too. But we don't just. First of all, if you have a particular password, you don't want that to get into GitHub, and you also don't want. Even if we don't want a bunch of people changing, db.php all the time, so that if they sync their changes, they end up getting someone else's username and password. So we want to be able to we want to get around that problem somehow. And sometimes there are frameworks that'll provide sort of a solution to that problem. What we can do here is create. What I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to rename this file to db-default. Okay. And then I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to rename. I guess I could have done this in a different order, but so I'm going to end up with a db and a db default. Okay, right now they're the same. What we'd like to do here is I'd like to change db.php so that it uses not root and blank password, but it uses a particular user I have set up on my MySQL installation. Okay, which could be different than what Daniel has on his or what Isla has on hers. But I don't want this to end up in GitHub. Instead, what we'll do is we'll keep this db default in GitHub so that people know, okay, they can make a copy of it, call it db.php, and then just change the values, and then the code will work. So here's my GitHub client. Now remember, I made those changes to send.php, and what I'm going to do, a cool thing I can do in the GitHub desktop client here is I can right-click and click Discard Changes, like so. And that will actually change the file back to the way it was on my computer. And that way I can avoid, I didn't want to, obviously we want to make that change eventually, but I want you guys to do it. So something I will do here is now in my file structure, I have my gitignore file kind of at the top here next to the trivia folder. And if we drill into the trivia folder, then we go into PHP, and there's db.php, which I want to have ignored. So I'm going to add db.php to the list of ignored get ignored files. And see that oh, okay, it said it added an ignore. Well, it's okay. I guess so. I guess I didn't need the the slash at the beginning of my gitignore file. But I get so cool. I didn't realize this was possible until just now. But you can right click here in the GitHub desktop client and click ignore file, and it will add a line for you to the to your gitignore. So now I'm not going to commit that. I'll just commit the gitignore and the db default. And sync. And if we look here, okay, there's our okay, so now actually now what we would want to do is have a commit that deletes this db.php. So why don't I try that? Okay. Okay, so now that db.php is no longer there, and it should, since it's in our gitignore, it should, if this worked right, I should be able to kind of recreate it without having GitHub tell me to commit it. Yeah, so it doesn't say I have any doesn't say I have any changes. Like if I added some other file, oh, it did add db.php here. Huh. Well, okay, well, I'll have to take a look at that, why exactly that's happening. But the point is we don't want db.php in our repository because everyone will have a different version of it. So we'll just put this db-default, and then when you get it on your machine, you'll want to rename this or you'll make a copy and rename it to db.php, and that's where you'll put your particular password. And we didn't quite get to the less stuff, but that's okay. So exercises, first of all, get the prepared statement going. And secondly, I think John had some ideas for graphics and colors to add to the game. So I would.
Great. Jacob, thank you. Thank you. Have a good week. See you next week, Jacob.
Okay. Yeah, sorry I had to cut out early today.
No problem.
We'll see you guys next time.
This is perfect. Okay. Have a good week, Jacob. See you next week. How about this? Just to get Jesus and Gabriel keyed in, Daniel, can you show them the game? If we pass you the ball, let's start by syncing everyone on how the game looks right now.
Of course.
Okay, great. And as you're setting it up, Daniel, let me just say, in terms of this project, what the problem is and what our mission is, as we've mentioned before, every time we start a development project, the first step is to identify the problem that we're solving and to set our mission or our goals to address that problem. So in this case, as Jacob said, one of the things we want to do, one of the challenges or problems that we have is that we want to demonstrate your web development skills by showing a professionally developed commercial grade product that's posted on a commercial site. So that's one part of this project. Give you an opportunity to build a commercial grade product and show it in your resume. From a build it yourself point of view, the problem we have is that when people visit our website, they tend not to spend so much time on the website. And the success of websites is often measured by how long people spend on your website. You get that information in the log files. Sometimes monthly, an ISP will tell you the performance of your website. So we know how long people spend on our website. So to address that problem, that is to get people to stay on our website longer, we want to create a library of games, sort of game of the week or game of the month, that when people come on to see what projects we're working on and look at the Build It Yourself site in general, they will see this library of games and in addition to looking for information on our website. When people spend a lot of time on your website, then advertisers tend to value your website higher. Partners tend to value your whole program more highly when they see that people who go to your website spend a long time on that website. Brent, I know you have a lot of experience with this. Anything to add to that problem mission? Why we're creating this library of games? Okay.
No, I think that is perfect, and I guess the term that could be used with that, I guess, would be bounce rate. So yeah, I can throw a link to the wiki that defines it, but pretty much it's, if people come and they leave the site, which is kind of like what you're saying, like the duration of the time. This is pretty much if they come and they leave instead of clicking to other pages, the click-through rate, and just some terminology, I guess.
Right. So we're trying to improve the statistics of our website by giving people a reason to come back and by giving people a reason to stay longer on our site. That's the summary of why we're developing these library of games from a build it yourself point of view. Okay, Daniel, you have the ball. You like to share your desktop and show the trivia game? We chose to build a trivia game engine first because we thought that was relatively simple compared to other kinds of games. And after we finish this game engine, then we'll brainstorm ideas for the next game engine, browser-based game engine. Anyone have any questions? David, Gabriel, Jesus? Oh, Jesus, how do you like us to pronounce your name? How do you pronounce your name?
Well, it's Jesus, but for example, in school they call me Jesus.
Okay, okay. Either one is okay. Good.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay, Daniel, you have the ball. Do you like to share your screen and show us, show Gabriel and Jesus the trivia game?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so
David and Isla, Gabriel is from Honduras, lives in Honduras, and Jesus is a friend of Daniel's in Mexico, and they're going to be new interns. Okay, great.
okay. Well, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so well, this is the trivia game, and well, actually, this layout for the answers is new, and this is what Ayla is working on because she's changing the way they display in the page. So the previous, the way was this one. So you can see we have the tree. Well, but first of all, I'm going to talk about what this does. And so we have uh, the game here. This is a welcome, uh, thing. And then you start the game and you see this effect, and then you have these questions, and you have to answer them right. So you have points here, and the points are changing whenever you get a wrong answer. Sorry, you have 1 point less, and when you answer right, you have 1 point for your points. And then, so the problem with this is that when we uh, change out, when we open the page in a phone, we have this, with the answers go to the left, and you can not really see them. And what I like doing is that she's changing it so you can see it in a beautiful way, even when you are in a phone or in a computer. So you can see the change from this one to the new one. Oh, I lost the mouse. Okay, I cannot move the mouse out. Yeah.
Great.
And so that's it. And then we have this little section where you can create your own questions. So you can add like the topic is, I don't know, animals. The question is how many legs does a dog? Uh, I don't know. I'll just make it. Let's see, 2, 6, and 4. So and then you can choose the right answer with these little buttons, and you send it. The question is saved, and you get back to play. And now we start the game, and hopefully uh, we will see our question here. Let's see. Yeah, so here you can see the question. How many legs does a dog have? And okay. I lose because I went out of time. And that's also another thing. When you know, you get out of the time that is measured for the answer to be the question to be answered, you lose 1 point, and that's sometimes annoying because you want to answer and the time doesn't like you, but that's okay. And okay, so that's I think that's everything for the trivia to be shown.
Fantastic, Daniel. So, any comments, Isla, David, Gabriel, Jesus? What can we do to this trivia game engine so that we can get it ready for prime time? Any suggestions? New functionality we could add to this? Different layout? Let's brainstorm a little bit about this game, or maybe it's just good like it is and we're ready to go on to the next game. Jesus, any thoughts about this?
Oh yes, I think it's a really great game. Uh, Daniel told me about this before,
Yep.
but he never showed it to me. But now that I see it, I am surprised. It's a really great system, a really interesting website,
Yeah.
and I think he uses a lot of databases
Mm-hmm.
and connections with it, and I think it's really great, and I like it a lot.
Great, great. Thank you, Jesus. Gabriel, any suggestions? What do you like about the game? What could be better?
In regards to the layout, I think it's really good and it looks really clean and simplistic. I think that's good.
Okay, good, good. David, any thoughts on what you like about the game? What could be better? Where we could new functionality we could add to the game?
Well, I think we need to either finish the easy version or change the difficulty so it's just always timed. Because having it saying that we haven't finished it is like someone coming up to a car and saying like, "Oh yeah, we've installed everything except the wheels.
Good.
Still drive it."
Okay, great point. So before we put this to bed, we want to have 101 version and 102, or easy and difficult. Okay. How about adding sound effects, David, to this, or music, or
Music would be good. Sound effects for trivia games get monotonous, especially one where you click answers as quickly as this one.
yeah,
So
yeah. Okay. Um, Isla, any thoughts about any suggestions for the game? What do you like about it? What could be better?
I like it all. I mean, it's good. I agree with like David and how like we should finish the versions like before we like upload it, like before it's like done.
Yeah.
And background music would be good. And I think maybe more color. That would like make it,
Or even some graphics.
something like that.
Okay, we'll talk about that design or the graphics in a next another session. Okay, so how about if we follow up with what in the last 15 minutes with what Jacob suggested? What if we try to rewrite the prepared statements? Since you had the ball last week, David, are your computers set up so that we can pass you the ball and we can guide you through recreating the prepared statements that Jacob taught us?
My computers will not allow me to share my desktop and
Okay.
work on this. So
Okay, so it's okay maybe if we let's work with Daniel, and we'll try to guide him through recreating the code edits that Jacob suggested. Okay, Daniel.
Okay. Okay. So for what I saw that Jacob was doing, I entered to this page,
Great.
And I found the MySQL prepare, the function, but I see it a little bit different from what he was doing. Page, okay, like, oh, I lost it. I lost it. Okay. Right? Yeah, this is what he was doing. Okay, so
David and Isla,
so I will
chime in here. Let's sort of. I have a feeling Daniel has this down pretty well, but to make sure that you understood what Jacob was saying, why don't you sort of verbalize the next steps? And Daniel, you try to follow along with what Isla and David are suggesting.
Okay, of course.
Oh, David, unfortunately, we just lost David.
Oh.
Okay, it's all right.
Well, maybe Ayla can.
Okay. Ayla, do you want to suggest next steps?
Sorry, can you repeat my microphone? Like I can't. It's
Okay. So what very often when we set up program teams, 2 or 3 people working on the same computer, what happens is the person who's on the keyboard just types what the other 2 are suggesting. It's called extreme programming. It's a method of programming that many companies use to improve efficiency. They'll have 2 or 3 programmers sitting around one computer. And when you get tired, you're delegated to be on the keyboard. And when you're fresh, that's when you want to contribute ideas. So extreme programming, in the extreme programming model, those who are not typing should be suggesting what to do. So Isla, can you sort of guide Daniel where to go next, or or Daniel help Isla along if Isla isn't clear?
Okay, well, I don't exactly know where to start, but I know that he mentioned about prepared statements and making strings in the code. Yep. But I'm not really sure for what, and if anyone could explain that'd be
right. Okay, I have a similar problem, Isla. It went so fast I didn't quite get it.
Yeah.
Okay, Daniel, do you like to try to take us step by step through this?
Of course. So what he did was that first he copied this big string I made. Okay. So. Okay, so we have it here, and then what he did is that he added the prepare statement MySQL function to it before, and what this does is you need to erase let me just take, okay, I forgot this thing and this thing. Okay, so you don't actually add what is happening. Okay, you don't add the variable right here. You put this little question mark that then later in another function will be changed. But I don't know what it does. I know it, if you put another what what can I call this? If you write here in the answer, you write like you end this thing and you put another this and close this thing and you add another insert into or erase database, you will lose everything because the person is making inject SQL injection, and you don't want that to happen. So with this prepare MySQL I prepare function, what it does is eliminates that probability. So and that's what Jacob was want us to do, and that's awesome because we don't want that to happen. and then what we are going to do is add this function called MySQL ICSTMT bind param, and we add here what we called before STNT, what will be the MySQL I prepare function with our string, and then we here we say which which spaces will be if it is a string or an integer or a double or something like that. He showed us here there's a table where we can know what character we are going to use for each one of them. So right now all of our spaces, all of our places in the table, they are all strings. So what we are going to do is, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We are going to add 6 S's. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And here we are saying that all of our, table places, they are all string. And so these are going to be a strings also. And then here we are going to add what will be the actual variable we are getting from the HTML page. So here before I already get it from with a post from the Ajax, and so we are going to add the question is for quest, and then this will be topic, and then this will be answer 1, answer 2, then we put a comma, answer 3, another comma, and we have the right answer. And so for now, that's what I get.
Great. Daniel, may I interrupt for a second?
I think we should see it. Yeah, of course.
I just want to try to explain what I think I heard from Jacob and what I saw you do for the benefit of Ayla and Gabriel and Jesus. So as I understand, the problem of SQL injection is that when you give a user the opportunity to enter a string of data, they can enter a string that could actually be executed by your code, by the code that sits on the server. So you could enter a string that would say delete the whole database. And instead of being interpreted as an answer, it would be interpreted as a command to the SQL database. So in order to avoid that, you specify exactly what type of an answer it is, and the answer can never be a command. Is that, Daniel, a summary of what Jacob was saying? By making prepared statements, you eliminate the chance of a user injecting a command in the answer.
Yeah, and actually that probably will be in this page. So what what will happen is that a person will come here and just say, let's say I will change my keyboard to English, and they will add like this, and then maybe a comma, and then delete all, and I don't know if this will work. I'm not going to try it, but maybe but that's That's
That's
what
the problem.
will happen. That's the problem. So then with this, these functions will do is that is what you said, that they are going to specify that they are strings, they are nothing else, and we don't want them to interfere with our SQL line.
Perfect. Does that explain, Isla, the problem and the strategy we're using to address the problem?
Yes, it makes more sense. I think I just have to like keep on like getting used to it, but like it makes sense, isn't it? So it's because like if people want to add questions in, that's what it's for.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thanks.
Exactly. So it's not when you're playing the game, you don't enter strings when you're playing the game, you just click. But anytime a user enters a string, you want to protect your code by using prepared statements rather than concatenated strings. Okay, fantastic. So do you think this will work? Shall we commit it and try it?
Well, actually, I think we should have this line, the execute, because here it says it will execute it, and then we need to close it. So I'm just going to add those lines really quickly.
Okay.
I'm going to delete this one, because we don't need that anymore. And also this one, just like that. Okay, yeah. And okay. So I think it should be good to try it out. So this is the page, and I'm going to add a question. Let's just say, okay, yes, no, 1, 2, 3, and let's open the element dictionary. I'm going to look for any error if it comes to light. So we will send, and right here, yeah, we have a warning message. Okay, so here it says MySQLite prepare function expects exactly two parameters, one given, and the error is here. So what I'm doing here is I'm sending only the insert into and the values string, but the documentation says we need to also add the link where the connection to the database is made, and I forgot to do that. So that's a good thing to notice. So now I added, and let's try again. Okay, so let's say yes, no, 1, 2, 3, send. Okay, now we have another error. Undefined variable view in line 22. Okay, line 22. Yeah. So here, what it says is that this variable is not actually made before, and that's true because this was before when we were using the MySQL query function. We are not using it anymore, so we don't need that. And let's try again. Yes, no, 1, 2, 3. Send, open, and it seems we don't have any error right now. So it should be working. And
very nice.
What we are going to do to test that is that we are going to actually open the table. I'm not going to open the page where the game is, but I'm going to check if the question is here. So yeah, you can see that's here. No, yes, 1, 2, 3, and the answer is 2.
Great. So if we want to delete a question, we have to go into the database right now. We don't have a facility.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. No problem.
It could be made.
Yep. It's a functionality we might
Yeah,
consider down the road, because ultimately we'd like someone to be able to create a new trivia game without having to go into the database. We don't want people mucking
Yeah, of
around in the
course.
database, because they can wreak havoc if they go directly to the database.
Yeah, and I think also a page could be done where you could display all the questions and answers. So we could see what is inside the database.
That would be really nice.
And that would be
really
that would
slick.
be cool.
Yeah, really, really slick. Okay, great. Well, we're at the end of the hour now, so I just wanted to, before we go, any questions or comments, suggestions for what we can do in the future? Isla, I'd really love to add some graphics to this. And as you said, suggested, Isla, more, a colorful, playful layout, interesting text font and so forth.
Yeah, that would be good. Overall, though, it looks really good and it makes more sense, like the code stuff.
Gabrielle, I'm mindful of your comment that it's good if the game looks simple and straightforward, not too cluttered. So if we add graphics, we don't want to make it a hodgepodge. We want to make it cool and elegant,
easy to see,
easy to understand. Right. That's a great guideline, user interface guideline, Gabrielle. But I also think that it's important to have graphics in our games, not just text. Although there have been many games, successful games, that are simply text. Okay, Jesus, any suggestions? Gabrielle and Jesus, you're welcome to join these webcasts in the future, but as you can see, Jacob goes pretty quick, and Daniel has a fair amount of experience with MySQL, PHP, and CSS. So it takes a little while to get where Isla and Daniel are. Okay.
May I
Sure,
suggest something? I think it would be great to make an interactive menu. There are other options, and the points. I think I don't know, maybe more color there, and it will make it more attractive, like an interactive menu.
Yeah, interactive menu. Maybe we can, maybe over the week, if you like to, in PowerPoint or some drawing tool, suggest how the layout could be.
Oh, yes, I will do it.
That would be interesting. Isla, if you like to do the same thing, just create a PowerPoint page that shows a layout that, that you think would attract attention. People would see the graphics and they would say, wow, that's cool.
Okay.
I can tell you guys that the style of Build It Yourself, the brand of Build It Yourself, is to not be afraid to look silly. So if you're afraid to look silly or sound silly, it's very, very difficult to learn. So many of the things we do are kind of poke fun at the world, very playful, cartoon-like, computer game-like. We tend not to be straight and narrow like you would see at school. We want to be more playful and computer game-like. So we also tend to use cuckoo birds as mascots, because that sort of suggests when you want to be a good inventor, it's important to not to be afraid to look a little cuckoo or a little crazy. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if you like to take a cut at designing a screen layout, do it in PowerPoint, and then next week we can talk about how we could execute that layout in the overall engine structure that Daniel has created. Does that make sense, Daniel?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. All right, guys. Have a good week and look forward to seeing you next weekend.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome, Lila.